It's the internet, you're busy, let's do this. I'm Jeff Grubb, I write for GameSpeed.com, and I want to talk to you about the Atari VCS. That's right, the new Atari. It's a console, it's a computer really. It's pretty neat. I believe it's $400 for this, and it comes with some Ryzen parts, comes with a Vega 3 graphics, I believe. Comes with all the stuff you need here below to plug it in. Got the Ethernet port. It's neat. Really what it is kind of a video gaming set-top box combination that focuses on its Atari legacy in terms of the way it looks, and then in some of its presentation, and in some of its peripherals. For example, it works with this little guy, which is just an Atari controller with the little shoulder button here, and this. But the cool thing about this joypad here is you can actually spin this, and it works as a spinner style controller. So you could play stuff like Breakout, and that is very cool. It's the rotation controls, it's a little bit fiddly, so you're always going to want to turn that sensitivity down. But I played stuff like Warlords and had a pretty good time with it using this controller. I would say that this is probably not for most people, but if you have any sort of affinity for Atari, and if you have, I don't know, if you have an extra TV in a room where you go and you either like play with the kids or you entertain people, or it's your classic gaming room and you have an old TV sitting there, or modern 4K TV, whatever, you plug this in and it's neat. It comes with some Atari stuff. We'll get into that when we go over to the computer. We plug it in, and I'll show you the games. But it's mostly just a cool way to interact with Atari in these days. Now, I think it's also got a little bit more going on because it does have this option to install Windows and run Windows off of it, and then it works just like a PC. You can get Steam on there and see how that works. When I messed around with that a little bit, it worked fine. It's just not something that I would normally use to play games, but that's just because I already have a PC plugged into my TV where I normally play games. If you want something that is lightweight, maybe you do want, like your kid wants to get into some PC gaming, maybe like Roblox or something, and you want to put it into a central location. You don't want them just to go get on a laptop somewhere. You could set this up with a keyboard and mouse, thanks to the USB ports here in the back, and set them down in front of a monitor, set them in front of a big screen in a central family room location, and use this as their gaming PC. That's pretty cool. Now, it does support its own software. In addition to the Atari games that come with it, you can buy another pack of Atari games from its store, or games made specifically for this VCS. There's not like a ton of options, not a lot of recognizable stuff, but it's like a selection of indie games made by indie developers that so far I've had pretty good luck with. They seem pretty solid. There's nothing mega disappointing about anything. It also does work as like a video set-top box, and for that I think it runs actually it runs like apps in Chrome. So basically you download free apps from the VCS store, and then when you're opening them, you're basically opening like the web store version of Netflix or something like that. Now, I've used it a little bit, and it works fine. I think that when I tried to do 4K video from my Plex server, it had a little bit of an issue. It seemed like it was chugging a little bit. The processor is pretty good, but for 4K video, maybe not the best. But when I did Netflix 4K, it did just fine. So your mileage is going to vary. Depends on what you want it from. In terms of just using this as a way to watch videos as well as play games, it seems great. It seems fine for all that. To the interface, let's look around a little bit. I'm not going to be able to show you a ton because HDCP has been causing me a headache to show off the video stuff, but I can show you some of the games, and then we'll come back here and we'll finish out the video. Okay, we are on the VCS now. You can see a bunch of games here. This is my home screen. Got a firmware upgrade available for the controller. We're not going to do that right now. We can check out the store real quick.
And you see here, there's a bunch of options, a bunch of categories. The apps here, there's no shortage of apps. And again, I believe that these are all running out of Chrome as Chrome apps. So that's why there's no lack of support. That's why everything is here. It's because everything was already built for Chrome, and now you can just get it there. And I think when I try to open these now without the HTTP, I tried to hook up a splitter to strip the HTTP. That didn't work. But if I try to open Pluto TV, it's just gonna, I think, take me to Chrome here. And yeah, see, it's just like, no, we're not gonna do that. So you go here, and that's fine. You get the idea. That stuff works just fine. So instead, let's check out some games. Let's go, and I think the first thing we should look at is that Atari VCS Vault. And one thing I do like about this is this the artwork and the font treatment they do. Not for these splash screens, but for the ones coming up for the VCS. This right here looks great. Yeah, I like that a lot. So this is the VCS Vault game that comes with the system. And I think there's about 100 games. You can see here's a list, but if you hit the X button, you can actually see the arcade systems here laid out in front of you. And in this first VCS game, you actually get a gallery, so you can look at artwork for this stuff, some of the Atari Club patches they sent out. This stuff's really cool. I like this a lot. But then we can play something like Lunar Lander. You can see it start up. Actually, you know what? Let's go to the main menu. Let's look at some of these options here. You see, I mean, so there's the gallery for Lunar Lander, and that looks fantastic. But then you have options here, and this enables you to adjust, the sensitivity and stuff. I'm gonna turn down the thrust sensitivity a little bit. I'm playing with the regular Xbox style controller. Then there's game options though, and this is just like, if you own the arcade cabinet and you wanted to adjust the toggles to make it more difficult for all those damn kids coming into your pizza shop, you could come in here and set those options right here. So like starting fuel, I'm just gonna turn up to 1800 so I have a chance of doing this. And training, so it's not too hard for me. And yeah, let's give it a shot. This is just, it feels like the game. I guess, you know what, we can, don't have the options here. In the options, you can adjust the way this game looks. I think I have it set for the vector graphics to have a little bit of that glow. You can see there's glow around my ship, just like the old vector screens would have had. Slow down. There we go. The Eagles landed. 200 points. Not too bad. All right. You get the idea. These are Atari games. And then there's Atari VCS Vault 2. This has a few more games, but it doesn't have support for something like the gallery for most of the games, I think. It's but you also have to pay for this one. The VCS Vault 1 comes with the Atari VCS. Vault 2 is in the shop. I think it's $10. But it adds another 50 games, and there's some good ones in there. Again, I like that font treatment. So yeah, we got, again, the arcade systems. This time we have more 2600 games. We have Adventure 2. But this time we have 5200 games in there as well. Still kind of what you would expect though. Star Raiders, Super Breakout, things like that. There we go. Oh, I immediately crunched. Oh. You gotta keep in mind, it's like controlling a big wheel. All right, you get the idea. But it's not just the Atari Classic games. You can go into the store and find basically what are modern indie games, things that might have what feel like Atari flavor to them, like Missile Command Recharge and Frog Hop. Thrustlander, honestly, this one reminds me almost of a Jaguar game with its graphics. It's sort of
destroy all enemies to complete.
Yeah, you see how it's like flopping around like that? So unnatural. Whoa, slow down. Let's look at the store again real quick. Just kind of get an idea of some of the games. You can see here kind of the things that are most popular. Atari VCS Vault. I think that, again, that you're just going to own that. But if you, for some reason, you delete it, you can get it back from the store right there. Atari VCS Vault 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they do more in the future. But then, yeah, there's just a lot of different options here for different games. Again, stuff that I think is pretty like in line of what you would expect to run on an Atari machine. But then there's, there's stuff that, again, just feels like it could be on the Switch as an indie game or Steam as an indie game. Stuff like Boulder Dash Deluxe, of course. And this Unsung Warriors is just it's a 2D action game. Looks like it could be on Steam or Switch. All right, then there's the extra modes here. First, the Atari VCS Companion, something you could download for your phone, and then you can use your phone to interact with the various apps on the VCS. So, like I said, most of these apps are running as Chrome Web Store downloads, and they don't play well with a video game controller. So if you want to interact with them, your best bet is to get this Atari VCS Companion app, get your phone out, and use that as like a mouse and keyboard, basically. That's fine. That works well. It makes it easy to enter text and stuff like that if you're using Chrome or whatever. PC mode is a pretty cool thing as well. This is the option to create a bootable thumb drive for a different operating system, including Windows, and then plugging that in, and then you hit restart here, and the system will boot off of that thumbstick instead, and then you can run Windows and run Steam, run anything like that. And I think that this is the kind of thing where, again, if you want to set this up for someone to use as their gaming computer device and a TV, that could be very handy, very useful. It might not be as convenient as a laptop or something like that, but this is still a nice option to have here. And the hardware is definitely good enough for most games that are indie style, I would say. So in terms of what you're getting from the Atari VCS, it does use Ryzen. It's an embedded R1606G CPU, and that's really, it's an APU. It is one of their combined graphics and CPU units, and it's Radeon Vega 3 graphics. It's basically like a pretty beefy laptop, but like a beefy, very skinny laptop, essentially. And this is good because that means the system itself doesn't get too loud in terms of cooling. It's pretty efficient. And basically, it punches above its weight because it also has a pretty good active cooling in there. So if they need to clock it up and boost it to handle some games, the system can handle that. And it is capable of 4K video output. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's actually upgradable. And then it has 32 gigabytes of Kingston eMMC internal storage. So that's like exactly what the Switch uses, basically. So in terms of loading things, it's not going to be SSD fast, but it's going to be about as fast as a Switch. A lot of phones used eMMC for quite some time. I bet many phones still do, but some have switched over to SSDs, proper SSDs. Now, this thing also has an open M.2 SSD slot, though. So if you wanted to add in your own storage, that's an option. You could add a lot more if you wanted to add a lot more games. And again, that would be useful if you were booting into another mode, where most of these games on the store here that we're looking at, they're really small. And the apps, like the Chrome apps that I was talking about, those things are kilobytes in terms of size. They're nothing. They're basically just opening a web app, literally, that exists on the web, so that you don't have to install anything there. So Netflix isn't going to take up any space, really. But if you wanted to start installing Steam games on the system and not on the USB thumb drive where the OS is going to be.
So I think you get a good idea of what the Atari VCS is all about. If it were up to me and I was spending my own money on this and I didn't have a video game console or a video, set-top box style device to plug into a TV in an extra room, I would personally probably go with the Xbox Series S. It's cheaper, $300. I do believe this is $400. And the Xbox Series S is going to have a lot more games. It's very, very good with video content because of its really good processor. the Xbox Series S, it's not even really a comparison. Like, Xbox Series S is a modern console on a modern platform with a lot of options and a lot of games and Xbox Game Pass. And this feels like a new sort of smartphone put into a box that you plug into your TV with its own app store and stuff like that. The appeal all comes down to how much you care about Atari. And I think for the most part, Atari is it's a cultural artifact now, and I don't necessarily know how much people want to engage with it as a gaming service, a gaming brand. It's more like, you know, you see the Atari logo in Blade Runner, and that's cool. Or you get an Atari shirt, and that's cool. But if you do have that, if you do like harbor a lot of love for Atari, I think this is good. It's good. You're going to get some fun out of this. I really think a lot of it comes down to this joypad. Now, of course, there is the modern Xbox style controller, and it really is just an Xbox controller with some Atari branding on it. But it works fine, feels okay. But this thing is it's neat. It's cool to play some games with this, and I really like the spinner controller built right in there. Okay, though, I think that's going to do it for me. There's not much else to say about it. I'm glad they did it. It's very cool. The hardware is surprisingly good for the price and for what it is. Although it is a stark reminder, I think, that trying to get down and build a cheap computer right now, as opposed to buying a console, or even buying something that is like a prepackaged device that is, you know, basically a computer. It is just night and day in terms of what you can get in terms of power from an Xbox or PlayStation 4 Digital Edition versus this. You know, I said the Xbox Series S. I think the Xbox or the PS5 Digital Edition is the same price as this thing. And come on, I mean, this thing doesn't have a disk drive either. So, yeah, maybe it's an unfair comparison. I think it's going for something different, but I'm trying to speak to a broad audience, trying to speak to gamers who might ask me about this. If you know that you're into Atari, give this thing a shot, see if you like it. At the very least, it looks cool. I really do like the classic Atari design, and it does feel like they took the classic Atari design and made it feel modern, and that is impressive. But beyond that audience, beyond people who do think about Atari a lot, I think that you will be fine skipping this. Okay, that does it for me. I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care of yourself, have a good one, and goodbye.